Good evening and welcome to the August 25th work session of the Hillsborough Town Board of Commissioners. Are there any changes to the agenda and do we have a motion to approve?
Move to approve as presented.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. And this evening we have two presentations. The first one, I would like to welcome Janelle Dixon with the Small Business Administration. And Janelle is coming to give Hillsborough an update on the different programs and opportunities for relief through this program since our tropical storm recently. So Janelle, come on up.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Welcome.
Good evening,
And-
everyone.
And Janelle, if you could, once Sarah's finished with it, if you could speak into the microphone, then everybody behind you will be able to hear you.
Okay, perfect.
Thank you. Thank you for being here.
My pleasure. I'm glad to be here.
And do you support the entire state or just this area?
Just the area that's been affected, the counties that have been affected by Tropical Depression Chantal.
Gotcha.
Okay, thank you. Good evening. I'm Janelle Dixon, the Public Affairs Specialist of U.S. Small Business Administration. And I'm gonna be presenting to you pertaining to what we cover pertaining to disaster recovery. I've been here for almost a month assisting with the disaster recovery efforts here in North Carolina. Let's see. I do have some notes. I'm gonna make sure I get everything covered for you guys today. So a little bit about what the SBA does, of course. We don't just cover small businesses, we cover homeowners, renters, nonprofit organizations, as well as churches are eligible now. And the main thing with the U.S. Small Business Administration, whenever there's a disaster, we will come to these counties that's been affected, and we try our best to assist as much as possible pertaining to disaster recovery efforts. That's what we're here to assist. I myself and my colleague Kareem, we're just us two, and we've been assisting in covering Orange County, Durham, Alamance, Chatham, and many others that has been added on to our list for disaster recovery efforts. And so basically what they're doing is, so people that cannot get a loan, for instance, if you're trying to apply for through your insurance and they're not able to cover that, whatever disaster from Tropical Depression Chantal may have affected, we have offers with the SBA where people can come in and apply for mitigation. So if they're trying to come to a different area that's been flooded out and a lot of flood zones, people try to mitigate or move. And SBA offers those mitigation loans for you and they're eligible to apply for those. We have DLOC centers. They are closing on the 30th of August. We don't know exactly when the extension is gonna be. Normally they do a 60-day grace period, but there is eligible options for people to apply online. So this is the fact sheet. I did have some fact sheets printed out here. I'm not sure if everyone received one yet in the audience. Did everyone get a fact sheet? If not, I can pass those out to you. The fact sheets basically cover the information that we have, which all of our counties are here covered, our interest rates, and also for the homeowners, renters, nonprofit organizations, and small businesses. So business loans, they're eligible to apply to maximum up to $2 million. And for the homeowners, it's up to $500,000 that they're eligible to apply for. Now mitigation, of course, if there's, their maximum is for a nonprofit as well as $2 million, which can be a combination of both physical damage and economic injury disaster loan. I'm gonna go over it idle in just a little bit, and mitigation. So up to $100,000 is unsecured for the physical damage, and $100,000 is unsecured for the economic injury disaster loan. Eligibility requirements. So of course you have to show the ability to repay the SBA. You also have to have good credit history as that goes to the SBA. I'm not actually sure of the actual score, but it has to be acceptable for the government. Now, if the loan is declined, they're offered, all loan officers are available and they're eligible to go in and see up to 6 months from the date of the letter that they provided to you. If there have been any denials, they can apply, and then a loan officer will go in and give you a reconsideration. So about the SBA loan disasters, low fixed interest rates. no payment and no, incurred rate at the first year, so 12 months. You don't have to repay anything back. There's no, annual fees, thankfully, and no prepayment penalties. The no collateral or closing costs on loans up to $50,000 for businesses and also for homeowners. And they also are eligible for refinancing and relocation. That's the mitigation portion. The EIDL, which I was referring to, which is the economic injury disaster loans. So that's for our nonprofit organizations and small business, including the adjacent counties, which is our contiguous counties. They have like substantial economic injury loss. So I always use this reference where people have businesses that don't see the disaster from the financial standpoint. They have businesses that, have lost from revenue. Maybe they were not able to pay their employees during the time that the storm hit, or maybe they had economic loss, they lost product or services for food. If they had food, they lost their food. They can apply for the loan, and they had that during COVID-19 as well, where they can apply for the EIDL and get those funds utilized for those food to cover their product, anything like that. So I always say to apply for EIDL, normally they have about 6 months to apply for that one. That's the one that's ending in April 27, 2026. So they have time to apply for EIDL. The physical damage and the economic injury are two different things. Now, this is how you can go to the actual webpage, our step-by-step locations. North Carolina and Orange County is what you select for your county. Then you're gonna click on home right there, or business. So it depends on what they're actually trying to apply for. Then, of course, they'll just select Tropical Depression Chantal. It'll select that date. Now, the incident period is very important to take a look at. The 6th of July through 13th. If they did not have the damage during that time frame, they're not eligible to apply. So if they had previous damage from a previous storm, then that would not be eligible for this specific loan. That's also showing the fact sheets in our disaster center locations. I believe I have sent out several emails with that information with the locations of the DLOCs. We have one at the Orange County Library. That's where we have customer service representatives who are very knowledgeable that can assist with the loan recovery and also the loan process. So what people need to apply for the SBA loan? Of course, you need all applicants' information, name, phone number verification, social security number, EIN if it's a business. They're also gonna need to show income. Now, you don't have to bring this documentation inside of the DLOC locations. You can just have information for when your loan officer approaches you about the information that is needed. If you have any insurance information that you had that got denied and you're trying to apply and could not get credit elsewhere, like a financial institution, then that can be brought to the SBA and also looked at for reconsideration for a loan. Now, we also have, of course, our resource partners. We have the SBDC. We have our good disaster recovery officers located in Charlotte, North Carolina, which is our home office. And of course, SCORE Women's Business Centers. They're eligible. They'll be here even after we leave, after our 2 months or a month is up. They'll be here to assist as well in your area. Whenever you need assistance with anything like finances, these type of loans with the SBA, of course, like I said, our local offices in Charlotte, and they can also assist as well. And this is our website directly, www.sba.gov/disaster or lending.sba.gov. And you can contact us directly, or you can also send an email, and a representative in customer service or a loan officer can assist with the information pertaining to the loan. Any questions?
I have a question.
Yes, sir.
And that is, one of the things we've seen, after the storm, it seems like about every 4 days, a big tree would fall down somewhere in town as a result of all the flooding and stuff. And, but it seems like the cutoff, you said was the 13th?
The 23rd of September is actually the physical deadline.
Okay.
The 30th is
But
when the
for the-
DLOC close, which is the centers. They're closing on the 30th.
No, I was referring to the eligibility period, to the 6th through, was it the 13th that the
Yes.
damage didn't occur? So if a tree fell a day after and took out a house, then that's.
No,
out
that
of
would
bounds.
not apply, be in that timeline. Now, there is an instance if they have deemed it as more damage was done in that specific county, of course, then mayors and congressional officers will come together, senators, and see if they can deem that as a declaration for our agency. And we will look into it as well and take that on, but it'll be a different agency declaration. It would be counted for this one specifically.
Yes, sir. Thank you.
My pleasure.
That was actually the question I was gonna ask, because a lot of times with trees, or power lines and things like that, it's weakened, the soil is weakened from that particular incident.
Correct.
But, you know, as water subsides, it doesn't always subside within that period, but the damage is caused by that incident. And so the subsistence is when it falls over. And so that was my question, is how do people get recovery, you know, when that happens? So when that tree falls on the house or on the car or whatever, it's directly related to that. To the storm, but it takes more than 5 days for the water subsidence to go, you know, to subside. How do people get recovery for that? Are you saying
So-
that the mayor would have to create a whole new declaration and it go through the chain for something like that?
Now, for instance, like you're saying, after the storm has already transpired, you know, the winds and stopped, the rain has stopped. You're referring to if the tree has been uprooted from their
Because
property.
if the water, when you've got flooding and such like
Right.
Chantal. So when that, you know, it's the tree roots are weakened, or the
Okay.
foundations are weakened. But it's as that water goes away, the weakness, you know, that's when it settles in the imbalance because the soil erosion. So when it falls, it's falling, it may take 2 weeks for it to fall because of how fast the water table may or may not drop.
What I would do, if they know for a fact that they're, you know, in a flood zone or have that erosion, have a tree limb or a tree leaning, I would go ahead and put that information in the system as Chantal. And I would go ahead and put it in as, hey, you know, this happened and occurred during the storm, however, this is the aftermath. And I would also talk to the loan officer and tell them, hey, this happened after Chantal occurred, it happened like actually during a storm, but this occurred to my home, this needs to be fixed, what can we do to rectify this, and they'd be able to work with them. Normally, I've seen that, because like I say, I'm a survivor of Katrina. I dealt with the hurricanes and survived one myself, so I know after Katrina, we was a lot of aftermath, and they assisted us just like that.
Okay.
Now, FEMA is not
Right, no,
anywhere in
we're
here.
not gonna talk about that.
We're not. We're not. We're gonna be nice to my sister agency.
No, I spoke to FEMA, do we?
Yes, ma'am.
From DC, we will not go there.
Yes, ma'am, I get it. I'm not gonna talk about my sister agency. However, when things of that nature happen, I always say, I would. In my opinion, if it's my home got damaged, a tree limb hit my power line and say the power line snapped. Let's go ahead and report that at Tropical Storm Chantal, because we know that this is what occurred during that storm and this is the aftermath from it.
Thank you, appreciate it.
My pleasure.
I don't have any other questions. I was just curious how that range of dates is determined. So you said from like the 6th to 13th, it's about 7 days for, is that typical for a week based on the storm? Or is it really?
It
dependent
is.
on-
It's based on the storm. So when that storm actually hit, they go, of course, watch and monitor the storm when it actually hits. And of course, when it actually ended, the aftermath of it, when they come out and assess some of the counties, like we come out early and assess some of the county and see the damages, then we'll declare, hey, this is gonna be an agency declaration, or if it goes higher, then it's presidential, we'll go to the White House, say, we need to go ahead and get a presidential declaration for this area. So it's determined in that aspect.
So if it rises to the federal level and they determine there's also where the declaration at that time.
Yes.
Generally.
We're federal government, so we're the ones that we take on the agency. So SBA is the one that's actually taking on the responsibility, making sure these damages are assessed. We're going out, getting in the communities, letting them know what's going on, and we're the ones taking on the damage and aspects and the aftermath of it. So if we have other agencies, like we say for FEMA, they'll come out and assist as well and do other things so that they can do the assist, but on this instance, it'll be just us at this time, assessing the damages by ourselves. My pleasure.
Thank you, Rob. So I want to say first, thank you for coming and sharing the
Thank you for
information about
having me.
Chantal recovery. And you've probably heard from other sources and maybe from our town staff and certainly Orange County that this is the most impactful storm in memory, and it's just a tropical depression. So, I mean, the amount of damage to the town alone, I think we're up to about $8 million in damage, which is just unheard of, in recent memory. And as well as residents and businesses, in addition to the town operations. So my question is around, eligibility. Without having gone through the online tool you described, if someone thinks they have insurance and they think that it might cover the storm damage, but they haven't gotten a determination, should they go ahead and apply through the SBA for assistance? And then if it turns out their insurance is going to cover it, then they stop with the process with the
Absolutely.
SBA? Or
So how that works is, we always say, if you're not gonna go through your insurance or you decide that you want to go through them, you don't absolutely have to take the loan. So if you say, for instance, the SBA approves you for the $50,000, and then your insurance side, 2 months later, they wanna cover it. There's no obligation, you don't have to actually take the loan, you can just say, hey, I can use these funds towards the next one, or towards mitigation or something else, if the insurance is gonna cover it. SBA does not make them, hey, you gotta get it if you apply for it, no, you don't have to do that.
and what if the insurance, let's say that the damage is $100,000, but the insurance only covers 50, can they apply for an additional 50 through the SBA to cover?
They can, to cover, if it's property damage, automobiles, things of that nature, they can cover that as well.
Great, thank you.
My pleasure. Any question?
Mayor?
It mentioned closing costs over or up to 50K, so over 50K. Should people expect to have to pay some closing costs?
No, there's no fees for that.
I saw the up to 50.
So it's up to 50. So they have, for instance, property damage is 25,000. Say, for instance, they have 15 in maybe the automobile, tree fell on the car. Then they have additional 10 here, flooding, the basement got flooded, something like that. So they'll add all of these numbers together, and it's up to $50,000 that'll cover, particularly for the physical damage only. Now, they did increase it, that they have it up to 100,000 for the personal property damage as well. So they have increased that.
And then, you mentioned, Orange County Library, and that's where folks, if they want to talk to somebody, that's where you're at?
Yes,
Until the end of September?
August,
August,
for right now.
for now.
We don't know exactly if they're gonna do an extension, normally do the 6-day grace period to let some customer reps stay. So if I get information, I'll send it to our mayor and let them know.
Thank you.
It's my pleasure.
Evelyn, do you have any questions?
Thank you.
Well, thank you,
My
Janelle.
pleasure. Thank you for having me. I have 3 for work. There we go. Thank you. I can pass it out to the audience if y'all didn't grab one of these.
Great. Thank you. And while Janelle's doing that, we'll go ahead and tee up our second presentation about code enforcement updates. Shannon Campbell, our planning and economic development manager. Yes. It's not good.
Hello, good evening. So as this board probably knows, we did start with a code enforcement contractor for FY 25. That fiscal year is closed, so I just wanted to give some updates about how that's been going. I think overall very well. So we had $50,000 originally allocated. It did take us a few months to get that contractor onboarded, sign the contract. And so we actually weren't able to get started until about January. So a lot of this stats and information is going to be January through July. in early 2025, about January, February, when we got them on. We had them go through townwide, north to south, the south again, north, east, west, to all the neighborhoods in town. They even captured some ETJs that we had to cut for various reasons, because we can enforce zoning in the ETJ, but not necessarily junk and nuisance in the ETJ. But when they went through and we identified and sent 52 initial courtesy letters to folks that had an identified either town code or zoning issue on their property, just kind of letting them know that we had hired a contractor and that we were going to start doing more proactive code enforcement. To date, we've resolved 146 tall grass, junk vehicle zoning violations and junk solid waste cases, which is pretty good. That's way more than we ever could have done with our existing staff capacity. It's probably more than we've ever done in the history of the town, let alone in this short period of time. So we're happy with that. We currently have about 30 open cases. Of those, we have about 10 that the town may need to intervene to start an abatement process, which basically means that we will have to go onto private property and remove junk, remove vehicles, or remove solid waste, and or there's some dilapidated structures that have started to fall down that may need removal for a handful of different reasons, and we'll get to those on the individual cases. We were able to utilize about $32,000 of that funds. We do anticipate using that full 50 for FY26. So tall grass, this is the easiest one to abate because it's just not very challenging to mow a yard. So most of these were able to get abated. That we did have some common challenges. You may hear from your citizens that, you know, we had some disagreements on where property lines were. You know, this neighbor thinks their property line stops here and they're not mowing any further. This neighborhood, you know, thinks it doesn't go until over here. So then we have a strip of like grass this tall. We also had some conversations about right-of-way responsibilities and then mowing on slopes and hills, which can be more challenging, but still important to get those mowed so we don't get trash in there, rodents, mice, snakes, things like that. Some other challenges that we run into is like vacant and abandoned properties, and then properties that are in foreclosure that don't currently have a legal owner because they're either in abatement because someone has passed away and their will is going through that legal process, or if it's in foreclosure, it's kind of being transferred legally from an individual to bank ownership. It's hard to find somebody and track them down to get the grass mowed, but we try. Most of our junk vehicle violations result in abatement, but some common challenges we have is that sometimes just because a vehicle is older or looks kind of beat up, it doesn't necessarily mean it's a junk vehicle. In order to be a junk vehicle, it has to not be able to move forward and backwards on its own and not have current registration and title. So sometimes you'll see a vehicle, the one in the picture is definitely a junk vehicle, it's been wrecked. But there's also just some common things that we ran into with people that had an older vehicle that had been sitting for a long time that they let the registration go out on, that they think they're gonna fix up or that they think is worth a lot of money or could be worth a lot of money if they got time to fix it up. But we kind of got to get those cleaned up because when they sit, then animals start to move in, squirrels, rodents, etc. So junk and solid waste, here's kind of an example picture. So about half of these result in the abatement by the property owner. Some of the challenges are landlord-tenant disputes over who's responsible. So it may be that this was here, the tenant moves in.
Well, this, I know this one.
Well, yeah, I don't want to talk about these specific
I was like, I know
cases.
this one, and it's like a hoarder situation.
We've run into that too, yeah.
And no, and they have the ability, but because of the hoarder, the mental,
It's just not, yeah.
it has
there.
been cleaned up and more it's that. It is
that
not,
happens.
it's not it's a little more complex.
Yeah, well, and these can be really
They do
complex
have the
cases.
means to do it,
Yeah, these cases can get complex. That's the other thing to keep in mind when you have, you know, citizens approaching you being like, why isn't this getting cleaned up? And I wanted it done yesterday. If a neighbor runs into this and they're trying to sell their house or whatever, you know, time is of the essence and they get frustrated that it does sometimes take longer to get these cleaned up. sometimes these types of things will be behind fences and then you don't see them until you do, which means like the fence falls down or you get so much junk against the fence that it pushes the fence down. We've had some of those too, so we're just kind of, I'm just giving you an overview of what we're dealing with
Okay.
and what
I was
we're.
like- I was like, but I
what we're
saw that,
seeing.
And it was like, I know that one. And
This
I've
one has
gotten a lot of.
Been a challenge for a while. So abandoned and dilapidated structures are probably one of the most challenging to abate because most of these properties are in some sort of an heirs ownership, meaning that a family where a parent or parents passed away left their home to children. And that could be as little as 2 or as many as like 12. And it's really hard to get 12 people to all agree on a course of action. It's hard to get 2, but the more people you get, the more challenging it becomes. And then sometimes there's disagreements among the family member on how to resolve the violation. There's financial challenges, or there's a lack of a responsible financial party. So when you have 12 people that own something, no one person is gonna step up and be like, I'm gonna take care of it and pay out of my own pocket to go ahead and tear
Didn't
the
the
house down.
legislature though just pass some, because I know it was in, it was up for passage to address this particular issue. Cause it's all over the state, but I was thinking they actually
Not
passed.
that I'm aware of, but I will definitely look
It
at
was
that.
this last session.
Is there money out there?
It's not, that- what it does is that it, because of the multiple errors and thing, it cuts through what's on the table. And again, I don't know if it passed, but if it didn't, it's got really close.
Mhm.
Was, it cut through it allowed municipalities to get rid of these abandoned, take them down for,
Faster.
as a nuisance.
Yeah, because there is a fair amount of, and so one of the things we'll see at the end is that we are kind of recommending updating our town code to be able to address these better. Because we don't have a great way to do that right now. So our future code enforcement needs, we've made a lot of headway. For the future, we probably will need some budget to be able to do abatements. That administrative cost that we came up with was for a part-time code enforcement officer to go out, identify problems, send out letters, pays for postage. We do have to do by law certified mailings for a lot of these and also post the property if we can't get somebody to sign for a certified letter to make sure that they know that they've got a problem going on. So we may need some budget for future abatements. And then we also need to update and modernize our current code enforcement ordinances in the town code. There's some things in there, I threw out the example with the grass, the current grass ordinance allows the grass to be 8 inches tall, and then we have to wait another 21 days before we can issue a violation, and at that point, the grass is like this tall. I mean, it's just getting really tall over time, so we have plans to modernize that. I've already worked with the code enforcement consultant on doing that, and so we'll bring that to a future meeting for us to discuss and kind of go through those updates and changes. With regard to abandoned and dilapidated housing, we currently have nothing in the town code for that. So basically, at this point, we have to wait until the house falls down enough, there's not a roof, window, doors, walls, and then we can abate it as junk. But until then, and we don't want to have to wait until that point. We'd like to try to start getting these abandoned and dilapidated structures earlier on so that potentially they could even be saved or just torn down before they just fall in on themselves.
From what I've heard from across the state too, is it shouldn't be just residents. We don't have an issue in Hillsborough that I've noticed with commercial. But I do know of several municipalities across the state that they have as many issues with residential as they do with commercial.
Yeah, I would say our biggest issue with abandoned dilapidated structures for commercial have been signs. And we've been working to get signs down for businesses that no longer exist and or that have signs up for services that they no longer offer.
Is that what happened to the Hillsborough Motel? Did we get that to the museum? Because that was actually something we were trying to do.
I'm not sure about that one, but that one, I think Russell's Steakhouse, and then there was a gas prices sign at the Quickie Mart. The Quickie Mart hasn't even had pumps for a considerable amount of time. So there's a handful of, and then there's a sign structure, that we're still working with because it has multiple sign owners involved with Knee High, Braxton's, and My Secret Closet. There's a tree, and the tree, because it rubs against it so much, has rubbed the sign kind of bare.
Shannon, I have a question about, are we close to a situation where a structure needs to be taken down and the town might have to do it? That sounds like an expensive proposition, and how would the town recover, the cost?
Yeah, so what we are able to do is put a lien on the property. So we're basically kind of fronting that money, but then when the property is sold, then the town gets paid out first in that sales transaction. So we are able to repay ourselves. Did I explain that correctly? Okay.
Thank you.
And yes, we probably do have a few that we may need to step in. There's a few property owners, who have basically just said like, I don't have the financial means to be able to take care of this. Could the town, do this and put the lien on the property so that we can go ahead and get it cleaned up and taken care of? And because I'm not able to do that, whether it's a, physical problem, they're older, or they just don't have the financial means.
Can we use it as a practice, a burn practice?
If there's anything left to burn, I think I'd have to speak with Chief Cave more on how much of that structure needs to be left and what kind of shape it needs to be in to burn it. They may want it they may want a certain amount of it to be preserved before they catch it on fire and go into it. And then I was wondering, you all are out in the community as much if not more as I am, if there's any questions, comments, or feedback. I know, for example, we got some feedback from, I think, a Fairview meeting that a citizen was kind of concerned that SCEI didn't have any type of town identification, so we're gonna order some of that.
I don't know if it's the same individual but I have heard from 3 or 4 people who've asked me the same issue.
You have anything else?
I have a question. One of the comments I got back from a Fairview resident was around what the priority is. What, like, for example, why am I getting notices of my grass is too tall when there's a junk vehicle next door or a trailer full of just junk? What advice do you have for residents in terms of priority of code abatements?
Yeah, so everyone is getting that notice of violation letter. It's just that the grass is easier to abate than the falling down structure. It just takes more time. So they're all priorities. What we rely on a lot, because we don't have a big abatement budget, is for properties to self-abate or solve those problems themselves, or we work with them to try and get those problems solved. But it's gonna take longer for the properties that either can't or won't make those corrections.
Are there any categories of code enforcement that we are saving till last, or are we doing everything as going neighborhood to neighborhood, looking at the entire code and picking out potential enforcements?
No, we're doing it across the board, where we have stalled out. And again, because we don't have budget to be able to do abatement, is the stuff that either can or won't be corrected by the property owner.
I can tell you, I got a letter when I was at Dad's. There was, the last thing I was thinking about was my yard.
And we are treating everyone as fairly as possible. I'm sorry about that, Commissioner Ferguson.
Well, I mean, as I talked to Matt, I said, if I get a fine, I'll pay it, but right now, my brain can only handle
So much.
dad care, and I can't, I just couldn't, but it's like, folks, nope. There it was, and I was waiting for it, I knew it would happen, or let's put it this way, I had a very strong suspicion. And it should have.
Is that the end of your
Yes.
presentation? Any other questions?
I have one quick question. So Shannon, you mentioned like the 10 cases that may need abatement or need abatement. Do we have a process where are we finding these individuals? Is lien an option for those ones that we've just, aren't getting any kind of movement on over time, or what's the process?
Yeah, I mean, I think we'll have to, so I'll provide kind of those cases and so you all have the address and can maybe go by and see them. For the folks that have just come out and said, like, please help me, I don't think it's gonna be helpful to do civil penalties and fines. You can't get blood from a turnip, as they say. So, I think those are probably the ones that we may have to focus on first. And then we'll have to just work with the other property owners kind of as we have funds available to abate them and then put those liens on the property. But yeah, oftentimes it's really not super helpful with junk and dilapidated structures to do fines. You can, but there's probably a reason that those properties found themselves in that state.
Thank you.
Megan, do you have any questions?
I had one, but I think how you explained Robinson, I'm good. I don't know, thanks.
Evelyn, do you have any questions?
No, it was, I've had one person ask, and since then, he's become quite ill. He has, he might have been one of the first ones that that the man went to see, whose property he checked, had his brother's truck, which, he couldn't do anything with. His brother's in the VA hospital or somewhere, and then he too was having a heart problem, and he said he couldn't get to it right away. I said, well, if you tell the man that you'll get it done when you can, I'm sure he'll give you some leeway. And that was at the very beginning, and I haven't heard anything from him anymore, and he has a cell phone, and I don't know his phone number to ask him. And so I gather that he either got somebody to help him or else. If I hear more, I'll.
Yeah, let us know. We try and
let you
work.
know,
we
because
try and
he
work with
really
folks.
is, he's by himself and he's sort of in a sad situation from what he was then, and I'm sure he's not any better.
Yeah, we do see that. We try and work with folks.
But I haven't had any complaints about the tall grass like I used to. I used to have young woman who called, I think, about every 2 months.
Thank you, Shannon.
Yeah. I messed something up.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the consent agenda. Do we have a motion?
Move to approve as presented.
Second.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Megan. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? That takes us to section 5, in-depth discussion and topics, and our first one is also from Shannon, Dustin, a resolution of intent to close an unimproved right-of-way and portion of Hazel Street.
Yes. And everyone pronounced that street different and spells it different, so I don't wanna get any nasty emails tomorrow about that. I'm just putting it out there now.
Aren't the 3 different street signs too?
Look, don't get me.
Okay.
I'm gonna be calling it Hassel. Yes, I've heard Hazel, Hassel. But so, Nora Dennis is here. She's an adjacent property owner on this unimproved right of way. There was a map in the packet to kind of show you where this is. This is basically one of those unimproved right of ways, that was mapped out probably hundreds of years ago, where we thought maybe a road was gonna eventually go. And what it really is now is, it's a shared driveway. The property owners would be better served by having that, right of way property go back to them. They're currently using it, maintaining it, and it really doesn't make sense for the town to keep this right of way. We don't have any intentions of creating any type of public access to the river there, nor would I think the neighbors really love that idea. And we're not planning on building a bridge or anything over the river in this point. So the property owner has asked about abandoning this right of way. And staff supports that, and they're here if you wanna ask them any questions and come up and talk about their right of way.
Does anybody have questions for Shannon?
No, I'm willing to make a motion to, approve the abandonment of the right of way.
Well, hold
We
that
have
thought. You're
yeah.
approving a resolution of intent.
Oh, intent, sorry.
And if you do, there'll be a hearing in September,
Okay,
after which you can take action.
okay, whatever it is, get her done.
Are there any questions? Evelyn, you look like you have a
So
question.
this is the property, if you go down Hassel Street and keeps going, you could run into it.
Yeah, well,
There's a
first,
house and there's a house and there's.
yeah, first, before you went down there, if it were me, I'd be like, is this like a street, or like, does this go anywhere? Cause it does kind of drop to a gravel like driveway, but yeah, I mean, and if you kept going, you drive straight into the river.
Yeah, I used to live, when I was little. I used to live somewhat close to that, and the Turners And the Privets lived on one side and the Turners lived on the other, and they got along very well and shared the driveway. But I must have been, 4 or 5 years old, so with my memory, I had to have rabies vaccine when I was 3 or 4, and I ran away to the river, and that's about the extent of my memory of that.
Yeah, yeah, and this, we would probably recommend that the property owners put in place a shared driveway easement. Just to ensure that they still have legal egress. We also have a sewer line in this area. So we would request, if we abandon the right of way, that egress be remained for both property owners and that the town get a sewer easement around that line. So that if anything were to happen, we could still go in there and fix it and work on it.
Shannon, is that sewer line easement, portrayed in the map? I see it in red. Is that?
Yeah,
that
and
have a red line?
Yeah, if you scroll down to the next map, there's a green line that runs through there.
I see.
And the process that, the attorney already touched on this, but the process is in the state statutes. And so this board has to publish an intent to close the right of way. And then we have to do legal ads and post it and also mail so that everyone in the general vicinity knows that we're planning on closing the right of way in case there's anybody who has an issue with that. But really the most two impacted property owners are the ones on either side.
Thank you. Are there any other questions? Okay. So the action requested is to adopt the resolution of intent to close the right of way and schedule the public hearing for September 22nd, 2025.
Move to approve that resolution.
Thank you, Kathleen.
So, you have a second?
Thank you, everyone.
Second.
You just did. Thank you. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you. And our next item is special event. Special event permit sponsorship for Hog Day 2025. Have multiple people to present, but Shannon, I assume because you're still standing there, that you're gonna present.
I'm
I'm
gonna open it, but we do have folks here from the Optimist Club that are the Hog Day organizers. We wanted to talk a little bit more about Hog Day this year. Because we were lacking some of the documentation and things that we needed, and the event was coming up close. But I will say that shortly before this meeting, Al and Craig got a lot of the documentation we needed together, paid the special event permit fee, supplied the newest version of the special event permit application, updated the emergency action plan and the event layout. And I think all we're waiting for right now are COIs, the certificates of insurance, which I'm sure they're working on.
I'm here Friday, but it'll be here for.
So I'm gonna turn it over to them to talk a little bit about the event, and they are requesting trash sponsorship and sponsorship for road closures.
Thank you, Shannon. Welcome. Please state your name.
Good evening, my name is Al Harkoff. Y'all already knew that. I'm joined here tonight with Craig Lloyd. He's the president of the Optimist Club. I'm the chairman and project manager. Also Kathy Rice, April Thompson, and Sharon Shira. We've been putting, Hog Day has been a festival here in Hillsborough for 42 years. You remember the first one, probably the only one that does. And for the last 11 years, if I'm not mistaken, the Optimist Club has taken over. When the Chamber of Commerce decided they didn't want to do it anymore. Well, somebody needed to, so that was us. And we put it together in 2 months. So we're a little bit used to working under the gun, which we need to work that out. And I take full responsibility for the lateness of the permitting and the payments and all that good stuff. And I'm not gonna offer any excuses and or reasons. We also brought in the North Carolina Pork Association's Whole Hog Barbecue Tour, which goes across the state. The winner of that contest has cooked here before. Hopefully they'll cook again this year. We currently have 24 of 25 cookers designated. So we're kind of thrilled about that. We have 70 crafters / vendors that have signed up, and we have 23 food vendors that have signed up. We try to improve every year. Sometimes that's a good thing, and sometimes it gets in the way. This year, we had some things that we didn't like to happen last year. We had some food vendors that the atmosphere was not good. I'll leave it at that, right? And so we invited them not to come back. We had some food vendors that just charged too much money. We can be a little arbitrary, but not capricious. And we asked them not to come back, and they probably bothered each and every one of you, and I apologize for that. I told them not to do it. I told them that young lady right back there with black hair, she has the final say over who is a vendor at our festival. And if somebody's not behaving in a way that we think augments Hillsborough, we will ask them to leave or not ask them back.
Are you still taking apps? Cause I ran into a couple of I was a model for the American Cancer Society, making strides. And then they had a couple of food vendors that were amazing. We were talking about holiday, but I didn't talk about this year, talking about next year, but is there room for vendors? Then I will connect y'all.
Very good. It's on our website, holiday.org. If any questions at all, you got the new copy of the EAP?
Yes, sir.
I know that Major, Andy had a conversation after I left the meeting, and there were some things that came up. I want to be sure that they're all fully addressed. One of the things I did want to bring up is we're actually only asking for 2 LEOs for Friday, 7 for Saturday. So how you split that up with the sheriff, that's totally up to you.
I've got you 6 for Saturday and the sheriff's office is handling Friday night.
You'd have made it. Yeah, any other questions regarding holiday?
Yeah, here's what I'd like to do. I'd like to go around the table and ask for individual questions, and then just for clarity's sake, Shannon, what is the status of the question about the 5K because the Riverwalk is not open? Is that off the table?
Yeah, I can address that. Yeah, so we do have a problem, of course, with Riverwalk. We can't go left, we can't go right. At present, we were looking for a response back to Stephanie and hoping it was gonna say that it was okay, but that's not gonna happen. A proposal has been given to Stephanie that we actually launch the 5K on Cameron Street, run to the graveyard. Cemetery, that sounds better, let's call it a cemetery. Take a right, loop through the neighborhood, and then come back down. However, we realize that actually brings about some challenges, because we're in fact closing or crossing a major road, the St. Mary's Road. That's a concern. The rest of it probably manageable, but I'd say that we're probably 65-35 not gonna have it at this juncture unless something comes back from the town. We hate that because UNC donated $3,000 to have that 5K, but what you gonna do?
So when you say waiting for the town, now you're talking about Riverwalk opening up and having the original route?
No, I think that would be out of the realm of possibility at this point. I could be wrong, but I'm accepting that that's not a possibility.
So your alternate route up to.
That alternate route, yes, if that's possible, great, we'll run that, and if not, we'll simply pass this year.
Well, could there be a route, another contained within neighborhoods or between neighborhoods? I don't know, Major Simmons, would that cause a night?
The problem when you have a 5K is that from a staffing perspective, when you run, the Hillsborough Half Marathon is coming up as a perfect example. That takes a combined effort of HPD and the Orange County Sheriff's Office. And you have to have people at every intersection. You can't just have people running through the neighborhood. And I don't know how many runners are participating, but they have the registration opened up all the way up to the day before the 5K as well. So closing down an entire neighborhood, which essentially we'd be doing is everything all the way up Cameron would be closed for on both sides of the street because you've got people coming through, circling back around, and it's closed all the way back to where Hog Day starts at Cameron and Margaret. And as far as I'm concerned, obviously it's advisable because that's us closing down the entire east side of downtown.
I was thinking something, so I grew up where the Cotton Road Run, which is a marathon,
Yes, ma'am.
national marathon, literally by my house.
Yes, ma'am.
It was mostly in, the way the routing was in neighborhoods where, when it was contained in the neighborhoods, they weren't blocked off. The streets were not blocked off.
When was that, ma'am?
It still goes on
Well,
now.
what I'm saying is
Oh.
that the timing,
Uh-huh.
if
Oh, it was, the runners would take off at 8 a.m. and it finished up at noon.
right, but what I'm saying is the time, you have to be able to get the personnel in place, the resources in place. And for this particular event, if they wanna apply next year for that particular route.
Oh, I was thinking, but a different route, that what
No,
I'm trying to
no.
say, is so you wouldn't have to block off a major thoroughfare, but within neighborhoods where you wouldn't have to block off.
I'm not comfortable having a 5K go
Okay.
through any neighborhood at this point where we don't have a presence.
Okay,
And, the world has come to a place where we can't just have people going through stop signs or anything like that without the potential for something bad to happen. And the
okay,
community safety aspect for me
okay,
is the biggest part of that. And for us to do that, I'd probably have to, at a minimum, double personnel.
Okay.
And getting that within a 2-week, 3-week
Yeah.
time frame is just not gonna happen.
okay.
Yeah.
No, I
There's a possibility of keeping it within East Hillsborough too, with
Well, I was,
5K in there.
I was not thinking
Yeah.
East Hillsborough, I was thinking completely different
Well,
neighborhoods.
But
but
the specific reason it's in East Hillsborough is because they're starting it at Hog Day.
Okay,
So it's, the 5K is not offsite. Is that correct, Al? Is that?
That's correct,
Right.
and that's the best I think we could come up with, was a suggested thing, given where it starts and of course where it would need to end. I mean, I guess I could go out there and run through Airmont 3 or 4 times, I don't know, but I'm not gonna even suggest.
so understood, again, I was thinking,
I wouldn't do that.
of my experience,
I would not do
where
that.
You might.
when they were, there was no.
And with more time, we could keep it contained in East Hillsborough. But the amount of time that we've got now, it's kind of limiting, the resources that we have available.
Understood completely.
Yes,
Thank you. So Al, it sounds like the 5K is off the table.
I believe you're correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, what other questions do we have? Evelyn, do you have any questions to Al?
You said cemetery, you're not talking about running through the cemetery?
No, ma'am, no,
I thought you said cemetery, I thought, don't do that.
no. Well, I stay out of cemeteries, we went to the one in Okotoks. And so a girlfriend back there got accosted by a spirit, so we gonna stay out of cemeteries.
No. So then you
You
don't-
don't- I know which cemetery you went to.
Evelyn, do you have any other?
I just missed, I thought you said cemetery, and I thought that's not a very, since we don't want dogs walking or people playing in cemeteries, you don't want people running in cemeteries either, so.
Thank you.
That's why I said that.
Thank you. Megan, do you have any questions for Al?
No, because I think the 5K was the only thing when Shannon listed out the things that had come in today. I think that was the only one that I didn't hear in that list, so we discussed that now.
Thank you. I'm glad to see that you got almost everything resolved. That was really concerning. If you're coming without any of those things being resolved, that would have not gone over well. So let's quickly talk about how are we gonna fix this for next year? We have a hard time getting you guys to get the stuff in time,
Yeah,
so we can plan. So what do you propose to do to help?
So we had an interesting meeting last week and, I didn't know if one of my compadres was trying to get my attention. We resolved that we were gonna start this thing in January. I mean, and we think that that's not too early. And though we wanted to give people a break after September and Thanksgiving and Christmas, but like second week in January is when we're gonna have our first meeting. We're gonna start from there. We've also made some significant refinements to the schedule, the Gantt chart, if you're familiar with those. I mean, I've been doing this kind of management for a lot of years and, it's actually good that Shannon is now holding our feet to the fire. I appreciate it. I've enjoyed working with her all these years, and so, we're gonna start in January, and the objective is to have everything in by, May.
That sounds great.
Yeah.
Thank you. Let's see if I have any other questions. Yeah, those are my questions. Thank you.
That's a good.
That's kind of my questions too. I mean, I had some real concerns because this is a big event, as you know, and it's not something that we want to cancel, but there's a lot of moving parts that have to happen, and there's a lot of time and energy from our staff to make it happen, and all of the partners that, you know, throughout the county, businesses that are affected by it too. So I'm glad to hear that you're gonna start in January, because I think it's a lot of planning, and I would reach out to town staff early on if you have questions or concerns. It's something that we, you know, want to support, and it's great for the town of Hillsborough, and I love going to that event. But there's a lot of logistical things that we need worked out early on, and if this happens next year, I will not be in the same kind light to want to approve something like this, especially knowing that it's put a lot of time and stress on our staff. So I'm glad to hear that, you know, you've heard that, and that you're taking action and making some plans to avoid that in the future. You know, I hope you have a great event. Hope the weather's great, and I just want you to make sure that, you know, that you get started much earlier. So come June, that application's in, and we can start, you know, moving forward from that date.
Thank you, Mr. English. And as I said, I'll make no excuses or reasons for why it is. I am the single throat to choke on this project. So, but I will echo something that Shannon said, and I totally agree with her. I could use some more help. So if anybody wants to join the Optimist Club, we're all very optimistic. Spurgus?
Oh, yes. Well, first of all, I have to say, I am glad to hear that we have a start date of planning. Because I've got some folks I'm gonna be sending your way. Good. I have one more question about vendors, because I have heard from a couple folks, if it was too late to be, they're not food vendors, they're the non-food vendors.
Hogday.org.
Yes, okay, cool beans. I being this close, I wasn't sure, like I said, I talked to him about next year. But privately, I wanted to ask if it was still open or not.
It is, and part of this franticness, as I indicated in my opening remarks, is from the way in which this came into our lap, right? I mean, and we sort of got the whole dump truck load at one time, and we did it in 2 months, and so we're sitting here going like, yeah, we can pull this off. What, you want to try for 6 weeks next, you know, which is a bad attitude, right?
No,
You don't want to do that.
No, we don't. And we do appreciate, grateful that the Optimist Club is spearheading thing. I think y'all do an amazing job. You know, you are able to, by doing it that way, you're allowing the chamber to do what they do best. You guys are phenomenal. And like I said, I'm glad to hear about January of next year, because I'm gonna be, like I said, I got some folks I'm gonna send your way.
Glad to have it.
And, you know, looking forward to another really.
Good. We got some
successful-
great bands lined up for this year. Hope to see y'all all out there.
Thank you, Al. What I'd like to do next is to ask Shannon to come back up and tell you what I hear from the discussion, and just ask you to verify that my understanding is correct before I ask the board the question. And that is, in terms of the application, they have everything but the certificate of insurance that's coming up. So that would be a condition, right, of approval that COI get submitted in a reasonable amount of time. But, and then in addition to subtracting the 5K from the scope of the permit, are there any other conditions that staff need to see regarding the application?
I mean, Shannon and I have been in contact, so as long as, our concern, after we got everything today, I was pretty amazed that I was able to put that together, so quickly after we had our meeting last week. But as long as we can uphold the planning, coordination for next year, I mean, I don't have concerns, because the logistics will be much easier on everybody as long as we can maintain that planning process.
And the, go ahead.
So the sheriff is going to the part that he's gonna help.
Yes, ma'am. Every year, it's when the sheriff's office partners as far as having officers and deputies, wherever they're needed. So the sheriff's office usually handles Friday night. We'll handle during the day on Saturday. They'll also have some deputies there on Saturday as well.
And on it all would be on the police department.
It's not, it's a partnership between the two agencies.
It's going to be that way in the fire department, you know.
I know that.
And it would be.
I can't say as if directly or indirectly they are involved, but I do not believe, they're not gonna be on site, correct? A medic truck or a fire truck won't be on site.
The CERT team is going to be there, and Sharon back here is our medical liaison.
Okay, yes, I don't think there'll particularly be a fire truck or a medic truck there, but.
They can do, but
but
they are aware of it.
yes, ma'am, they're involved in the planning and Al invites them every
Don't
year.
want it all done from the.
It's not, no, ma'am,
If it is, let me know.
absolutely.
I don't know what I'll do about it. But I'll do something.
Okay, so here are the three conditions that I hear. Must have the COI. No 5K this year, and application must be due prior to June 1 of next year with up-to-date documentation.
I'm willing to make that motion.
Okay, is there any more discussion? Okay, go ahead, Kevin.
I move to accept the application for Hog Day with the three conditions noted.
That would be to approve, right?
To approve, yes. Thank you. I'll get my words eventually.
Are you gonna add anything about next year too?
That includes, that's the three
Okay,
conditions.
I didn't exactly hear what you said.
Oh, I stipulate that the three noted conditions, which being the COI, the no 5K, and that the all planning documents.
If everybody else has to do it, then you
It's before June 1st of next year.
should just be one of three.
Oh, absolutely.
Thank you, Kathleen. Do we have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Megan. Any more discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, thank you and good luck with your event. Next up, Matt Efert is going to give us an update on Tropical Storm Chantal and the after action review with an update on survey results and next steps.
Good evening, Mr. Mayor and Board. We're gonna run through a few slides, just providing a brief overview of our after action report, so far. Results from the community survey, and our internal surveys, and report on some of our next steps. In addition, we have, some feedback from today's, comprehensive countywide after action report meeting. A number of us were in attendance for the so-called hot wash session this afternoon, where we talked across agencies for our recommendations for preparing for future events. So if you all recall, in July, when we came back to talk about vehicle and equipment replacements, part of that discussion was our early after action review. Those were our internally identified items during and immediately following the event that needed to be looked at and improved for future situations. What we have here are a list of some of the major steps we've taken between the storm and now to shore up some of the gaps that we identified. The executive summary and the full document in the AAR include a number of other resolutions that are in progress. But since the storm, we have leased a new space for Public Works to operate out of while Highway 86 is under construction. We are updating our procedures for relocating vehicles out of flood-prone areas. As we, and this kind of goes down a few bullet points, as we prepare to renovate the Adrian Thompson facility, we are looking at an alternate parking arrangement for those vehicles as well as flood hardening for that facility. You all took action at the last meeting to update some town code language regarding water supply emergencies. We had a meeting today with Orange County and other agencies for a comprehensive after action review. And the communications team has already designed and is preparing to order a large number of boil water notice signs. So these are things that we've done since the initial early after action review. As part of that discussion in July, we committed to do a public survey. And so we did 4 different surveys for key input groups: Mayor and Board of Commissioners, the emergency management team, our key operational staff, and an open survey to the community. We got a total of 140 responses from those groups. These are brief summaries. Again, the document includes both the raw input from all of the surveys and a summarized review of the input. The board survey was generally positive on the performance of the emergency management team, with recommendations about reducing the reporting burden, enhancing inclusion and resident support, and using pre-planned decision tools. So these are all items that were noted in our next steps for follow-up. The internal survey of emergency management team, generally strong communication and coordination, but challenges with the timeliness of public messaging, the miss of the initial risk assessment, which again, these are the same things we heard today in the countywide AAR. Everybody was caught unaware. Reliance on limited staff resources. Again, this was something that was noted in every agency's review. There are just not enough bodies that are trained to operate in emergency conditions, and so that is something for all of us to work on. Our internal survey highlighted need for clarity on emergency operations center activation triggers, how to get information out to the public faster, and continuing to improve our disaster readiness. We've made great strides over the last 2-3 years in improving our ability to manage emergencies. And some of those efforts paid off and some of them identified needs for future training. Our other key operational staff had felt like we had an effective response to the event with effective communication and training and awareness, but some gaps in our cross-departmental coordination, some lack of clarity on the roles and procedures as we're beefing up our emergency response capacity. Again, the timeliness of public information and our ability to respond from a financial situation to emergency purchase situations. So we've got some recommendations for more training, improved outreach to residents, and some clarity on policies. Community survey, we got 120 responses. About almost 70% were town residents. 20% were utilities customers that were outside of town limits. 7.5% other, and then about 4.5% business owners or employees within town. These are self-identified. We don't have addresses to verify. We provided folks with our service checker from our website to allow them to confirm their resident status.
So we only heard from 5 businesses.
Now, folks from the businesses may have responded on behalf of one of the others. They had to pick one category to belong to, but those were the folks that I identified. Positive, generally folks felt safe, somewhat safe or very safe during the event. 80%-ish of, the resident and business responses were positive. About 2/3 of our other responses and a little over half of utility customers. One observational note from, these surveys across the board, the, responses from our out-of-town utility customers, by and large, were much more negative than the rest of the population. And that's consistent across all of the questions. If you get down to the granular data, there is just a negative connotation with those folks. In terms of our perception of preparedness, so what do residents and others think about, the town's preparedness? What do they think before the storm? What do they think afterward? Again, you've got it broken down here by response category. The positive perception before the storm, negative perception before the storm, and then the same after. So a little over half of respondents before the storm considered the town somewhat or very prepared. We had a slight downtick in those responses after the storm. But what really happened is folks that were neutral, so didn't have a strong sense of the town's preparedness, shifted almost exclusively to a negative. So we have a negative perception of the town's preparedness after the storm. That is one of our, one of our challenges to address. Similarly, we asked folks to rate their opinion of the town's response capability and emergency operations. 2/3 rated before the storm, either high or very high confidence. That fell to just under 60%. But the negative ratings of low or very low confidence increased from 5% to almost 20%. So again, that negative shift in opinion happened primarily from the folks who had a neutral. And so what we saw across the board on these surveys is, and Eric used the term net promoter. So we have a lot of net promoters in this community, people that feel very strongly that the town performs well, that things go well around here, and they stuck to that. But the folks who either have no real opinion or a negative opinion, they dug in.
Well, it looks like the numbers increased, which would you expect just because of cognitive bias? I'm just looking at the numbers, there were more people responding post-storm, and of those that increased, it was to those who were like, it's negative, which you would expect just because of cognitive bias.
In terms of rating of services and support during the event, the average rating was 7.26. But again, looking down at the granular level data, residents responded, in-town residents responded generally more positive, average rating of 7.8, with 24 town residents rating a perfect 10. Compared to, again, those utility customers and others. 12.5% of all responses were what I would consider negative, that being a 5 or below. So you had a lot of responses that were very positive, a minority of responses that were very negative that dragged that average down.
What's an other? Because it's like, if you have resident, utility, customer, business.
There are a lot of county residents that don't really have, they're not a utility customer, they're not a business owner, or
Okay,
they saw the survey online and decided to click it.
gotcha.
In terms of communication, this is one that I pointed out to our communication team. It seems like if you just read the comments, there was a lot of less than positive feedback, but in the ratings, 1/3 of all the respondents rated communications a perfect 10. And so you have this dissonance in the responses as well, and we'll point out when we get to some of the open-ended feedback. Many folks that responded said, "Oh, everything was great. You guys did a good job keeping us up to date. You shared so much information. We really appreciate it." And other people saying, "I didn't hear anything. I had no idea what was going on. You guys are the worst." And so you see that in the open-ended response and the scores, you see a strong positive response from residents and others. So the open-ended responses, we've got over 40 pages of open-ended responses that we went through and tried to identify major themes or recurring comments. some of those are pre-existing concerns. Many of them will be familiar, specific neighborhoods where there's concerns in town. And so we'll go through, kind of point by point what we saw in those open-ended responses. So, this is the question about, what gave you confidence in the town's preparedness before the event? And so most of the comments were about, well, the town has a good history of effective maintenance, they plan well, they communicate well. We've had past positive experiences with the town. And, a general understanding among the community that certain assets like Riverwalk and Gold Park are built in the floodplain, they're designed to flood, there's an understanding of that. The concerning comments came back about, aging infrastructure, which is a common discussion point amongst town staff and the public, vulnerable utilities. So this was sort of a wake-up call for many people, something that we've talked about for a while with the river pumping station. Unresolved flooding in certain areas. So the entrance to Collins Ridge was one that was frequently cited. That's one that, folks are aware of. Inadequate targeted communication. So again, dialing down into the responses, you have some folks that say, I only want to hear about it if it directly affects me. Other folks saying, like, we should have heard, from everybody that there was a flood risk, before it happened. And so, but part of our conversation today with Orange County staff was about how to better utilize OC alerts. We've done campaigns over the last few years to increase enrollment. The way it works for town utility customers is you have to enroll not only in OC alert, but you have to make a secondary opt-in into town alerts for utilities issues. OC alerts limits how much our staff can send information out to OC alerts. And so some of the follow-up items that, the team has already made progress on is one, trying to find a way for our utility customer data to be shared so that they're automatically opted in to OC alerts. Looking at other tools to do geographically isolated alerts. So not so much folks that have opted in, but cell phones that are located in a specific area to receive alerts. And so we'll be more prepared in the future to address that. And so for each of these, we've got kind of the themes and then some representative quotes. So the quote for this that spoke to the themes is, the town's generally well managed, fiscally responsible, and attentive to future needs, and it's hard to anticipate freak accidents. And I feel like many of us feel that way about this particular event. So when we asked the same question, how they felt after the event, there was a general confidence in the response capability of the town. They felt like they understood and acknowledged that town staff responded to the event and worked very hard to get back to a state of normalcy. Appreciated the transparent updates and kind of the informal resiliency of the community, folks talking to each other and working together. Those similar concerns were expressed about communications, infrastructure vulnerabilities, and those being priorities to address. And so you see here two different quotes. I was impressed with the quick action and transparent communication from the town. And then while the response itself was pretty well handled, having the town's water facilities in the floodplain is a significant point of vulnerability. That was a common theme that we got about our water and sewer infrastructure. As you all are aware, water and sewer facilities are generally located close to the point of intake and discharge. That's not something that can easily be remedied, but there are steps we can take to harden those facilities and mitigate damage in the future. And so that's part of our follow-up. In terms of communications, again, the feedback was pretty divided, weighted towards the positive, the frequency and clarity of communications, but some negative feedback about the speed and the way in which people received information. In the quantitative data, we shared, how people are interacting with the town, what social media accounts they're using, how they're going to get their news from us. And so there was a strong bias towards social media, and particularly Facebook is how people are interacting with us. But there were some concerns about people who don't use Facebook or who aren't real tech savvy or concerns about in a future event, if we don't have power, if we don't have internet, how are we gonna communicate? And so those are things that we need to shore up in our gaps. And that speaks to that general feedback on need for broader outreach beyond OC alerts and Facebook. Clarity of instructions, particularly with the boil water notice, was a repeated issue in the comments and something we brought up today in the countywide meeting. So you had Mebane, which is primarily in another county, issuing different instructions than we were issuing on what to do. Various levels of understanding and communication among the business community here. And so one of the things that the countywide group is looking at is uniform guidance on things like that. Pre-staging those messages for the business community so that in the future there's clarity on what it means. Our signs have very simple graphics of, drink the water or boil the water, yes or no, and then refers you back to the website where we'll have more comprehensive information. Again, the difference in the representative quotes. Communications exceeded my expectations, impressed by the frequency of the updates, the water supply, and the steps the town was taking to fix the problem. Versus, I only heard about it on Nextdoor. So those are the two universes of responses we got from folks. The safety question, it was heavily impacted by folks' own sense of preparedness. If they felt like their home was in a safe location, or if that they were self-prepared, their rating generally felt safe. If they were in a vulnerable area or not somebody who felt self-prepared, their safety rating reflected that. So again, there's some representative quotes from two spectrum of folks on that. In terms of services that they received and rated well from the town, communications, timely updates, the bottled water distribution was very positively related. We shared that today with Orange County, and the rapid work to restore the services. We talked today again about common ground with other agencies on how do you share information about road closures, power outages, water safety. There was a few comments that addressed cooling and charging centers. How do we, prepare for those? Orange County has a project that we've been working on with them. They're calling these resiliency hubs. And so they're more general terms for like, what one-stop thing do you need in a given emergency? And so we're working with Orange County on those.
Whatever, because that was something that actually during the whole, the caregiving stage with my dad, we had a couple instances where loss of power, we didn't know where to go for oxygen, power up oxygen, because those bottles only, the emergency only lasts an hour and a half max. So when you're looking at cooling and things like that, are you taking to consideration those who need oxygen medical equipment?
Yes, so Orange County actually brought that up today, the consultant IEM.
Okay.
That was one of the specific questions they raised is what's your oxygen supply plan? What is your medical supply plan for future events? And so that's going into the county's after action
And
report.
the other thing with comms, and again, back to Dad, his dad was 73-year ham radio operator. He was part of, up until last year, was part of the whole emergency thing. And in fact, when he did his tours in Antarctica, that's how come we were in communication with Ms. Ham, Manager Radio. And I know that in different areas of the country, it's more or less popular, but we do have an active ham community in Orange County. Is our emergency, our first responders connected with the ham community for that extra power? Because most of those guys have generators, most of them are ready to go, and ham can go where you've got no power.
So I don't have a response to that. It's like Major Simmons. Do you have? Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Which one?
He's going, speak out.
I don't, but I have, I'm in contact with enough people that I can get a response to that. Working with, Darren, Strickland and Pat Campbell from Communications, they are the ones that are dialed into that. So I'm very confident that we can get, an answer, for that to add to the after action as a potential way of communication.
Yeah, if we don't, because I have found that when you have nothing else, those guys usually have a way of doing it.
Yes, ma'am.
Sorry to put you on the spot, but you're coming up here.
You're good, under it, let somebody in.
In terms of priorities for what to prepare and address for future, infrastructure, strengthening our infrastructure, improvements in real-time communication, dashboards, or, some other, updated, website or presence, and better long-term planning for resiliency. There were several folks who suggested, a variation of a CERT or volunteer disaster, response group, coordinating with the existing mutual aid groups. So as part of our work on the Orange County's long-term recovery group, one of the missions of that group is to figure out how to better leverage those mutual aid groups that are coming in, they're called BOADs. And how to better work with those and augment our staff.
That was something at state level Council of Governments. We were talking about the role of CERT. And while we do have Orange County CERT, there's, from county to county, they're stronger than others. I know when I went through CERT training, it wasn't as strong as some of the other counties. I know that they have improved a lot. But that was something that in the discussions where the communities that did have strong CERT, they were able to, with Colleen, that it did make a difference.
And so that was one of the things for us particularly, and you all will recognize this, one of the biggest hue and cry was like, how do we get the Gold Park back? How do we get the Riverwalk back? And we had lots of people saying like, I'll come out and help. Tell me what you need to do. And so that's one of the things to figure out for the future is like, do we have a way to plug folks into an operation like that? In the, sort of open-ended response of, what else do you want to share? We got a lot of appreciation for the response to the storm. Lagging concerns about the restoration of amenities, particularly the trail and the park. And then, need for, better long-term planning and communication. So what are we gonna do with this information? So based on the feedback and our own internal after action review, we have a list of resolutions to our internally identified items, and then some follow-up steps, next steps, based on the community feedback, really revolving around three themes: preparedness and community support, emergency communications, and infrastructure resiliency. So under preparedness and community support, we have some internal work to do, clarifying the emergency management team roles, our internal reporting and staff expectations during emergency operations. Some more planning exercises, both internal, working with broader partner agencies, and potentially a community planning exercise. There was some interest in folks wanting to know more about what goes on. This was brought up again today in the Orange County after action review. Looking into how to plug community volunteers into future events, and then training our staff on damage assessment procedures. Again, this was something that was identified at the county level and by other municipalities as a particular weakness. We were, I will say, fairly lucky. We did not have a widespread disaster event here. The town in Hillsborough took most of the damage compared to what happened in Chapel Hill and Carrboro. But our ability to turn around quickly and do damage assessment to get those disaster declarations was fairly limited. So that's something that as we work on our countywide, both the the AAR and our joint emergency operations plan has been identified as something that we all need to work together to improve. Communications. So we've already talked about looking at other non-OC alerts systems, using data we already have in our customer system, what other folks are using to better push out those emergency alerts, updating the town website. So one of the things that we didn't really understand before going into this event is our communication staff was making changes, creating these emergency banners, creating updates, and then it was taking more than an hour for the website update to get pushed through. So that's something that they're working on resolving, with the website vendor. And then just to speed up response, creating these templates, for decision-making, boil water notices, road closures, something that we have that's pre-canned, part of our, EOC in a box that we can have prepared. And then for infrastructure resiliency, we're looking into, flood mitigation measures at our, critical infrastructure points. Continuing to identify funding to, execute on some of the improvements that we've already have planned. And then prioritizing finishing our interconnect with Owassa. The Durham interconnect worked very well. It was a lifesaver, probably literally during this event. And we need to make sure we have the redundancy of the Owassa connection. Identifying and prioritizing solutions to those known flood prone areas that we have, the repeated flood areas. Working with Orange County on those resiliency hubs. And then, continuing to look at our planning and development regulations and how we are treating preparation for flood and drainage issues. So sort of bring it all down to one slide. These are our focus areas, communications, both internally and externally. Our incident command, continuing to improve how we're organized and how we're prepared, to execute. Operations, I feel like we did pretty well on this event. We have a few minor things we need to clean up. Protection for our facilities and infrastructure, and then preparing for a more severe post-damage assessment, how to do wellness checks, our search and rescue preparedness, and things like that. So,
Thank you. It's a lot of information. I'm actually really, not actually, I should be surprised, but I'm very impressed with. I distilled a whole lot of information from surveys into something digestible, so thank you. For that was meaningfully presented. We'll go around the table and ask for questions. I have at least one or two. Evelyn, do you have any questions for Matt on that information?
And just out of curiosity, and if you were to have you may know, if you have the water tank and the water tank's full of water, how many, if all the tanks were full, wouldn't that water be okay to drink for a while? I mean, people wouldn't have to get off, go off the deep end because it says full of water. You still would have water coming out of the sink, wouldn't you? I mean, out of the spigots, that would still be good. Because you used to not have any notices.
So in this particular event, because the clear well itself with the finished water got flooded, there was an assumption.
I understand that, but I mean, if just under normal circumstances before all this happened, I mean, that water would still be good, I would think. Until you start thinking about everything, when you had the thing about the algae floating down you saw that, then you might get a little bit concerned, but I would think the water tanks being full, you'd be okay for, well, yes.
Oh, I'll just try to answer the question.
No, I know, if you can answer my question.
Yeah, that's what I'm gonna try to do is assuming we can valve off or shut the water plant off quick before it gets in, which we think they did, but we called for the boil water as a precautionary note. In fact, that we were past the bacteria test like immediately, I think is an indication that we never had any problem. But to Commissioner Lloyd's observation, we probably usually have over a day's worth of capacity above ground.
But doesn't that assume that there's no I or breaks in lines? From the flooding event, because even if you had water in the tanks, if you had contamination in the pipes, wouldn't that compromise what was coming from the tanks?
So I is usually a sewer issue.
Okay, so
And I'm not saying you couldn't have I, but because the water lines are they're pressurized, and as long as the tanks are full, that is a much lower, priority. I'm just making up for instance, so we had a line that broke and there was a main break and it was in a flood area, then you get in a backflow situation where it sucks up, but we weren't aware of that. So we weren't aware of any of those issues, but again, those were all precautionary tales. And, actually, there's still be some more information that I don't want to ruin tonight in a positive way about actions that people at our wastewater plant took to sort of back up what I said.
Evelyn, does that answer your question?
It does, and I don't wanna take up time, but I can remember in school, when Hurricane Hazel, I'm so how old I am. When Hurricane Hazel came through and people were in school, it came in the middle of school. Each child was allowed 1 cup of water a day. And school didn't let that, school let out in the middle of Hurricane Hazel, and my mother said that she's teaching 1st grade, and she and my aunt were walking on the umbrella, and the umbrella went up. And so that they didn't, things have changed so much, people just don't, unless you lived in the olden days, you have no idea. But I thought, that considering how far Hillsborough has come, and we didn't even have a dam then, we just had bricks, rocks.
Right.
Remember that, Eric, those rocks out at they
Yes,
crushed them
absolutely. I helped put them in.
there? Yeah. That's why they named it Reservoir Peterson. Reservoir.
Thank you, Evelyn.
That's it, I wanted to throw some humor in there.
Thank you. Megan?
Okay, so, first of all, I wanted to say, like, thank you for the organization also, like, I really appreciated reading the team comments and just, it really painted a picture that, that I appreciated reading through. So after I went through this, I had also gone through the hazard mitigation plan, because that's been coming up with the county commissioners tomorrow. And then eventually to us, I assume, right?
So you all approved our portion of it a few months ago,
Okay.
fed into the county.
So, after reading through your report for the after Chantal and then going through this, there was a couple things that I wondered about, and one of them being the evacuation of Lake Orange and the county not having an evacuation plan, nor Hillsborough or any of the other municipalities, and wondering, what is that part of the after plan, the next steps? Maybe
Yes.
not for Hillsborough, but maybe for the county to come up with a plan?
So each of the dams in the county has an emergency action plan. And there are specific thresholds within those plans based on water levels and the prepared responses for those. One of the big findings from the countywide AAR is those plans need to be updated. Lake Orange, specifically was called out. The evacuation route was flooded. And so had they actually gone to the red stage of evacuation, the folks wouldn't have been able to go on the pre-planned route. We have an emergency action plan for the West Fork Reservoir. We reached a point during the event where we were starting to reach that elevation to the next level. We didn't get there based on the water level. But we have, one of the follow-up items from the countywide AAR is updating those plans and then doing some communication and community-wide drilling on what happens. Because you don't get much notice in a dam break. So what happens when that evacuation order comes? And so there are improvements coming to that.
So I guess part of my confusion then is the big chart in the mitigation plan shows nothing for evacuation plans for Orange County, but it sounds like there are evacuation plans for.
They're part of the EAPs for each of the dams. So Lake Michael, Lake Orange, and West Fork Eno and University of Lake all have emergency action plans.
Okay, so maybe there's a discrepancy in that
Hey,
chart.
we can check on that.
The other one that I noticed, and it wasn't in that chart as any plan is being captured, but the donation resources plan. I read that somewhere in here or in the other one, something about some kind of plan, how to coordinate those. Is that something else? I know that you mentioned it in next steps here also, but is that also like a county-wide next steps? Are they looking at how? So it's not just Hillsborough, it's looking at the donation resources plan. It's.
Yes, so Orange County has a donor management plan, and this was something that they reviewed post Halloween, because that was one of the major response issues and Helene is flooded with donations and we have to manage those. In this event, they chose not to activate that. But they do have a plan that exists and one of our internal follow-ups is getting familiar with that plan and designating a staff resource to be responsible for Hillsborough's integration in that.
Okay. Let me see, I have other. No, most of it is about the. Thank you.
Thank you, Megan. I have a quick question. In your conversations with Orange County, did you discuss, in addition to OC alerts and improvements for OC alerts, are they able to connect in, GIS mapping of residents or cell phones that might be in our floodplains? To be able to kind of, react, to a heavy rain situation?
So, I don't know about the GIS aspect of that, but their CAD, their computer aided dispatch, has a capability. So there is a tool that is controlled and requires, North Carolina and federal authorization to use, to do geolocated emergency alerts. They're not opt-in, they override, any user preferences. And this is something that, there was an article today, that Cumberland County is exploring, how they integrate into that system. And so there's technology out there to allow, Orange County to identify a specific, geography and push alerts to any cell phones in that area. But it requires higher level authorization.
But we could at least know which of our customers, utility customers are in 100-year, 500-year floodplains and invite them to participate in OC alerts.
Yes.
And as kind of a first line of alerting, seems like that they would be, I'm thinking down around Burnside Drive. Of course, Margaret Lane.
Yes, a lot of conversation today about better geographic targeting of alerts, and in the absence of sirens or something like that, how the communications groups can selectively target folks within specific areas.
I mean, I know that because the floodplain maps are so out of date. That would be, I mean, I think geolocation it's great when you've got currency, but it doesn't account for the out of date. And if you've got any kind of visitors.
I don't know. Yeah. So I know that NCGIS was here like 36 hours after the flood, updating their flood maps.
Yeah, because I know at the regional level, we're looking at and working with, because so at state level, NCORR works with the COGS and floodplain mapping is one of the issues statewide. But that it's a huge issue.
Yeah, and I see that Shannon has left, but I also think of the Placer AI technology we use from the tourism perspective. We know who's coming from where and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah.
Anonymously, we don't really visually, but
Right.
it seems like this day and age we could do more. Thank you. Oh, and in terms of has the county discussed any potential solutions for forecasting technologies that could aid in alerting? I mean, that's the common theme, right? We were all caught by surprise. And it wasn't until enough rain fell that we all said, oh no.
I'm not aware of anything regarding that, because forecasting happens at such a larger regional level. Nothing came up today that I recall about that. It was basically, this was a, what they call a zero notice event. And so treat it as that and not as a typical hurricane response.
So it might be worth asking, in the next month or so, Sarah Stevens would like to come. She's our new Duke Energy rep. That'd be a good question, because it seems like I remember getting forecast from Duke Energy, and the comment was Duke Energy's forecasts are better than, you'll get on TV, because they have to position infrastructure in the right places. So
But it's a different-
private industry must be getting it somehow, but maybe they're relying on services that have been discontinued by the federal government.
Also, they have a lot of they rely on private, as opposed to government. If you're relying on NOAA or Weather Service, there's been real damage. private, depending on your private sources, they've been unaffected.
That's a good point to follow.
Two sort of related points during the debrief today, the Orange County Emergency Management team, they went from going virtual because they weren't expecting, they said they were expecting 2 inches. But then when things got bad, they had to make the call to go in physically, so they were driving into the EOC in the middle of the storm and some of their people couldn't get in, which we all understand. So sort of tying that in with, like Matt had mentioned, what Cumberland County was doing, and they're talking about adding river monitors. This is a whole thing that I don't know anything about, but it would be something we may want to consider. I don't know what all involved or cost. Adding river monitors going up and other types of alert sounds or whatever, and especially for, an event where you're expecting 2 inches and then it's 13 inches, so. So we'll probably get introduced to other options that we weren't even aware of existing.
Thank you. Rob?
You answered most of my questions, but, so we talked about, relocating events in the, out of the floodplain, relocating vehicles, I'm sorry, out of the floodplain too, but it's that question of like, we were expecting 1 to 3, how would we know when to, move events moving forward in the future?
So, for the time being, for the next 14 months or so, it's sort of erring on the side of caution.
Yeah,
If there's any possibility that we're looking at heavy rain, just move the stuff. Once we get NC 86 open, we'll have a place, well out of the floodplain to store vehicles. As we move forward on the Adrian Thompson facility, part of the revised plans will include a parking area that did not experience flooding in this last event, and so is unlikely, to experience flooding in another similar type of event. So the near term, it's, be cautious. If there's any doubt, just move it.
excellent. I'm glad to hear, all the recommendations that you noted. I love the idea of having, pre-printed boil water notice signs or any kind of, templates that you can use on the fly, as opposed to spending the time trying to create that message and whatever it is. So I love those ideas of preparing and planning for that ahead of time. Yeah, that's really the only questions I have. It's good
Yeah.
job, and this too is, as Mark and Megan mentioned too, was done in a way that is digestible and understandable, and so I appreciate you taking all that information. So it's useful.
Thank you. One thing I'll add on the signs, one of the other, sort of interesting things that we're doing is, in the same template, we'll print up blank signs that we can then, get people used to that design and drawing their eye to it. And then if there's a non-boil water event, and we now have something that we can, write on. And so I think that's another just interesting thing we'll be prepared for.
I want to mention one other thing. So, we have a good friend that they live in Mebane, and so, and obviously their water thing was a little bit different too, but he was so frustrated because he didn't get any information from the town of Mebane. He was going to the website and he would go to our website and see the information we got. It's like, how come I can't get that? I've talked to communications people, but it was very positive on the communication and the language that we were putting out was very understanding stuff, but he didn't have that same experience. So good work, communications. So.
I have to echo just well put together presentation. Had most of everything. Eric actually brought up my last questionnaire, which had to do with groundwater saturation monitoring and river monitoring for these kinds of events, and going back to that weather service, because there have been meaningful cuts to, NOAA and weather service, the private's AccuWeather, Weather Channel, not so much, but there's some other sources and on that private side that are a lot more reliable. And whether or not we have any kind of tapping into, whether at the EMS level county level, municipal, whatever, how are we tapped into those things? So that we may, so that we can get or have an opportunity to get more accurate, forecasting, because even though Helene did have notice, they had days ahead, this is going to be an unprecedented event. They didn't know it was gonna be 30+ inches, but they knew it was going to be unprecedented, but they didn't have a coordinated way of getting the word out, and people, and understandably, we're not, it's unprecedented. We don't have the we are mentally not prepared for, but some of those things, if we're tapped into or have a way of that's feasible or
Right.
that we can do. I was actually having to drive in the middle of that and having, literally blindly, and seeing water where I have never seen water before. Pretty scary stuff. And there was no, there was no news feed. There was nothing. And I didn't have any preparation for all of a sudden it's just, oh, ruh-roh.
Right.
And I'm wondering if, as part of the planning, looking at some of that, where the other thing that I've come across, and this was elsewhere, and this is predicated on when there's generator, or there's still electricity, and depending on the municipality, is for the LED signs of rolling information. And it's placement, and it depends on the population centers, but that was something again discussed. Depending on the density, depending on the the visibility of the traffic counts, but it's an option at times depending on that information. Like water notices and things like that.
Yeah, and in this event, that was one of the unfortunate casualties of the early flooding was our mobile message boards.
Like,
But that is something that, in the future we'll be able to use. And Eric has talked about, thinking, a couple steps ahead to a more significant event with broader power outages, internet outages. Where do we have physical locations that we can do community bulletin boards? So that goes into our preparation.
I was thinking about this, when you think about primordium, ultimate is you have flooding in a tornado that wipes out everything. And an F5, it's not actually out of, that's not a an unprecedented event where you've got something like that. So when we're doing our planning, it's an opportunity to look at some of that level so that not only our soft infrastructure, but some of these other things, have we thought about when we have these? Unfortunately, in the climate world we live in, it's probably when it happens and not if.
Right.
And not that, it's not everything we can fix in one fell swoop, but if we consider them in our planning and working backwards.
So, final few updates, on the vehicle and equipment. Public Works has ordered all of the equipment now, for replacement. We have a handful of the new items have been received and others are in various stages of processing. Dustin has been all over the place chasing down vehicles that are on a lot. So he's been to Wilmington, Roanoke, and North Jackson, Ohio in the last few weeks to try to get a hold of equipment. So he's done a ton of work. One of the adjustments we made is, for the bucket truck, instead of buying a brand new $150,000-$160,000 truck, we found one for around $80,000 that's got low mileage, low usage. Using some of the savings of that to replace an excavator that has died since the storm. All that being said, we're probably going to have to come back at some point for additional funding because equipment has continued to die since the storm. So that's an update on the vehicle and equipment. Public Works will relocate, September first to their leased space. So we met with the landlord today to go through parking plan and things like that. And so that's in progress. And then, our architect that is working on the Adrian Thompson facility, has been given a task order to revise the designs, elevate, all of the finished floors by 12 inches. And come back, with a new cost estimate. So that'll delay that project by about 6 months, for design and permitting. But they've come out and physically measured, the inundation from the last storm. And so those are steps that we're taking, before we invest in that facility. And we shared with you all during a previous event, our internal sort of troubleshooting and, I'll call it red teaming light of, does it really make sense to invest in this facility? Is there something else we can do? And for the cost and the budget we have, it really doesn't make sense to start over. And so we're taking what steps we can before we invest the money to improve that facility.
Yeah, you said the temporary space is available, would you say September?
September 1st.
September.
Well, it'll be the second when we move.
Thank you. Great. Thank you.
Thank you all.
Very much.
And so there's one thing that that might have been said that I didn't, and I might have gotten this from the fire department. They said that somebody from the fire department went out to Lake Orange and measured it is this right? Every so often, and that the road to Orange Grove, Cedar Grove Road, Cemetery Road was washed out. There was an argument about who should fix it. The sheriff said the fire department should fix it. The fire department said that had nothing to do with fixing roads. And that went back and forth, and I don't know who finally fixed it, but I thought those were two interesting comments. But they were concerned about everything was flooded from what, and this might have been said, and that you've given us so much information. And I appreciate it so much. But I just thought that was interesting that they are sort of trapped. And I don't know how they got it. I imagine there's more than one way, but they did keep an account of how much water, how deep the water was getting. And maybe that helped us some with the reservoir,
During the
reservoir.
in the update we got today, backed up what you just said, and then like, Orange County, I guess engineering, who's over Lake Orange. They physically could not get out there, so Orange Rural, as Commissioner Lloyd said, was the one that got out there, verified there wasn't, the dam wasn't about to let go. So they were able to share that information, and then I believe Nathan Cates, who went out from our staff to. It was Nathan went out to verify everything was okay to put eyes on it, and he had to get out of there immediately, because if he would have waited any longer, he would not have got out. So anyway, but all of our, reservoir held up, so.
Thank you. Okay, moving on to item number 6 on the agenda, committee updates and reports. And I want to try something a little bit different tonight. And for everybody's information who is viewing this online or after the fact, that we have 16 committees that we appoint board members and myself to. And those members go to these meetings, they share the Hillsborough perspective, they bring back to us and to town staff relevant things to consider about the activities of that body. So first I'm going to go down alphabetically the list of 16 committees we're on, and I'm going to call on you ad hoc. If that's your committee, then if you have something to report, great. If not, just tell us. And then after we're done with that, then we will provide any additional personal updates. Like I have 2, they're not relative to the committees, but they're relative to the work of this body in Hillsborough. And this is an experiment, see if organizing it this way is helpful in any way. So the first one is Central Pines. Kathleen?
So we actually meet this week. And we will be doing, right now, there is a member survey out for which we encourage our board members, we want to, and staff, please, to take that survey. And Lee Worsley, the executive director, is visiting all members, so we will be visited at some point as part of the member engagement, and then we will be getting a year in review. So the next meeting, I will have some highlights from the year review. You've heard a lot through the year, but it's a nice encapsulation.
Thank you. The next one, I'm sorry, are you done?
For Central Pines, yes.
Okay, thank you. The next is, the Chapel Orange County Visitors Bureau, and Matt is not here to report on that. After that is the Community Home Trust Elected Officials Committee. Right.
We have not had a meeting. Yeah. Sure, no one.
Thank you. And next is Rob, the Hillsborough Parks and Recreation.
Again, our, August meeting was canceled just due to storm cleanup and stuff, but, I know that, Kings Highway Park is almost ready to be opened. We're still waiting on, I think, a fence around the water, whatever that water, what is that? actual- Intake. So we're waiting for a fence to be replaced around that, for we open, access to Kings Highway Park. They're working on, Gold Bar, replacing the, fences in the dog park, and getting the, bathroom facility, operational and open too, so. Keep your fingers crossed that will be soon, but, it's probably 2 to 4 weeks away.
Great. Thank you, Rob. Next is, Tourism Board. Right.
Tourism, we had a meeting scheduled for the first week of September, but it's been pushed back. That's my only update for tourism.
And how about, Tourism Development Authority?
That one also got pushed back. No updates from the last meeting.
Okay, and the next is also for Matt, Orange County Family Success Alliance. So I have to wait another month for the next meeting to hear about that. Next is Kathleen, Housing Collaborative.
And that meeting in September.
And Rob, Orange County Intergovernmental Climate Council.
Yes, so Climate Council, again, only meets twice a year, so, we had a meeting last May, and then our next scheduled meeting will be November, so don't have anything new to report.
Next, and how about Intergovernmental Parks? One group.
Similar, it just meets 2 times a year, so our last meeting was in April, and, there'll be an October, meeting coming up.
Thank you. Kathleen, Orange County Partnership to End Homeless.
So we just had, for our ESG funding, we got cut roughly half the funds this year were let. Because of that, there were only 2 applicants, Orange County Housing and IFC. It was voted to, there's a total of roughly, right at 45,000, for Orange County Housing for rental assistance. We just got notice today, it looks like the COC, which is continuing care. And the way, just for folks to understand, it's a little complicated. The Orange County Partnership to End Homelessness has multiple roles. One of the roles is the continuum of care, which coordinates the applications for funding to the emergency services grant to the state and for housing grant monies to the feds. And then once the state and feds grant those grants, the monies are released to those applicants that were approved by the continuum of care. It's a little complicated. We got word that last year, we were told that the funding was going to be once every 2 years. It looks like we're gonna go back to an annual cycle. We don't know, but we may get another round of funding. The way the funds have been cut, we're not optimistic. It's going to, every year it's short, but this year it's critically short.
Thank you.
And this funding again is for the emergency services grants, which is specifically for like the transitional housing and rental assistance. It's that transition piece. And so because of those massive cuts, we need to find other funding, and we need to have, frankly, private and individual donations.
Do you anticipate that there might be another ask for municipalities? next budget cycle too.
It wouldn't surprise me. It's critical. The grant that was denied was to help with utilities.
Thank you.
We didn't want to, but it's cutting the baby wasn't gonna help either.
Tough choices. Thank you. Is that it for?
Yeah, that's it for sure.
Next is, Orange County Solid Waste Advisory Group, SWAG as we call it, and, Megan and I will meet, is it late October?
October 30th.
Yeah. Next is, Orange Rural Fire Department. Evelyn, we have,
And we mentioned about the Lake Orange, they're working on steps. Fire station, I think it's station number 3, I forgot what station number 2 is. Number 1 is down here, but they're working on that and they found mold, and I'm not sure what they're gonna do with the, other than work on it. That's about the same.
and is there a frequent report from the relief fund?
It comes
Is that just once
quarterly.
quarter?
I can't think of the man's name. But he used to be a firefighter, anyway, he's extremely good with investments, and this is money for. Of people who get hurt and houses burn and the fireman. Whose house might burn. Did burn and to help them out, help anybody out, help any firefighters throughout the county. If a catastrophe helps, usually in Orange, Northern Orange. Like something happened at White Falls or something happened in Denver. Somebody got killed, somebody not shot well, somebody got hurt, or they were sick or whatever.
Yep.
And he invests money and then we meet to review the funds and see if the person is eligible for the money.
Thank you. So Triangle West Transportation Planning Organization, I'm the voting member of that. Matt is the alternate. We have a meeting tomorrow. But I did meet with the executive director, Doug Polchinski, last week to talk about transportation and regional impacts and various transportation related issues. And Doug wants to, Eric Doug wants to come to our board to give kind of an update on TPO and what's going on. And I'm asking Doug to coordinate with Matt and Stephanie on other, if there happen to be other transportation related topics that we might bundle his visit to us at an opportune time.
So, Mr. Mayor, he'll be here, during the September 8th meeting when we do the parking study presentation. And then they've also been advised that we're doing a transportation update at the September workshop. So he may.
So that's
be at both of those.
Nice, thank you. Appreciate it. And the last one is the Upper News River Basin Association, right?
We are meeting on September 17th.
Awesome. Okay, so that's it for our committee assignments and updates. Now, I'd like to go around the table. Kathleen, do you have any additional
Oh, yeah.
reports or things?
That's quite a bit.
that
So,
we need to-
so first of all, I mentioned, I've got I've shared with y'all red team thinking. I have passed, will be graduating and be a certified instructor. It is the highest level, so I am, less than half. So I'm really excited about. It was, as one of my colleagues said, she didn't work that hard in grad school. As a planner, it was like, oh my God, it was insane. Also for the museum, 6th of September is the 3rd Provincial Congress. So please, we want folks coming out. For Orange County Reentry Council, we are looking for furniture and accoutrement for folks. We've gotten housing for a 3 people, but we need things to put into housing. They need like beds and chairs, things to make it livable, sheets, towels, things like that. So the Reentry Council, which comes through the Orange County, Criminal Justice Resource, Department. For those, I don't think anyone here, I don't remember, the UNC School of Government, ALC, Advanced Leadership Corps, because the ambassador program reuniting on September 11th and 12th. For the Alliance Historic Hillsborough, I represent the museum on that board, where we were saying thank you to Amanda Boyd as she leaves, the executive director, and Danny McIver, the new executive director, and, Mayor Bell, you were, Mark, you were there.
It's a good event.
It really was nice. And as I mentioned, for American Cancer Society, it's kicking off. Orange County has higher rates of breast cancer and continues year after year than surrounding counties. I was a model for that, 13 years survivorship. And so there's going to be a walk in October. October is the month for breast cancer awareness. Affects men and women, and we had male survivors also. That's not talked about a lot, but it is an equal opportunity disruptor.
You know where that run is, that?
I do, I'll have to tell you, because I'm having a mind blip on that, but it was held at the winery in North Durham, the Zinc House, which was amazing. I remember when the vines went in, and I thought it was kind of odd, but there was.
I've been there, I've heard of that.
It was amazing. Yeah, think that's it for right now. Just, yeah, I don't know, do you guys get, this is minor thing, do you guys get emails from NLC, National League of Cities? Okay, all right, because I was noting there's more resources and trainings available through NLC. Now that I'm focused back from not dad, I'll get back to that, and so I may have more things following. And with that, I'm done.
Great, thank you. Rob?
The only thing I have to add is I was fortunate to attend the Uproar Awards event that they had Saturday in Chapel Hill, and Hillsborough is very well represented in artists, and Mayor Stevens was there, and Stephanie and Shannon. But looking forward to the two pieces of art that we'll have here in Hillsborough. It was a great event. This was, I could tell, in many ways, Katie was ready to have it over with. But it was a phenomenal event, and I hope people was able to see some of the pieces of art in Jericho, Hillsborough, and Orange County. And I don't know if you're aware, the one that was in front of the Rookery won the People's Award. And then the one in front of Carver Town, it's the jury selection. Put it back.
Yes, thank you. I have two, attended the most current Chamber of Commerce meeting. A lot of discussion around an annual marquee fundraising event. They haven't done it in a year or two, and so looking at a golf tournament next year, not this year. It apparently requires many months of planning and investigation, so TBD on that. And then also want to give everybody a heads up that there is a ribbon cutting on September 4th. I hope you've received a calendar event for that. And this is from the Orange Partnership for Alcohol and Drug-Free Youth. They're opening up a space in Hillsborough, so for off Corporate Drive near the Sportsplex. And it's for the Alcohol and Drug Abuse Prevention Team, and the acronym is ADAPT, ADAPT. So it's a youth-led activity, and so they have a space over there, and I got to go see it the other day. I'm very excited for the work that they're doing and to help them cut the ribbon on that space. So I can join. And that is at 4 p.m. on September 4th. That's it. Maybe.
The only update that I have is, Rob and I both attended the chamber leadership. That was a tour of Hillsborough. And thank you, Matt Eford, for the wonderful tour. And It was nice to have other people from around the county and talk up Hillsborough here. Good event.
Oh, do you have any other updates?
No, not that I think that everybody did a wonderful job during the storm,
Thank you.
and I congratulate everybody who worked hard. And was very appreciative, and I think everything turned out well. It's obvious that the motor pool is going to be moved. I don't care what taxes are raised, that motor pool is going north. So I'm holding you responsible, and you will find the money. And maybe the lawyer can help. Might as well include him too.
Might as well. Thank you, Evelyn.
And Mark,
Yes.
I lied, there was one.
So you have, I knew you were gonna have at least one more. Okay, go ahead.
So I don't know how many folks are familiar with Leadership Triangle. The Goodman Fellows, so I am a Goodman Fellow. And I've been, doing peer coaching for like 6 years, but, this will be the first cohort that I'll be coaching two of them. But if y'all have not participated, they have a regional version, which frankly, what we do meets pretty much what they do at a regional version. But the leadership, they also have a leadership version, which, it changes and, it keeps up at, from year to year, but it's a really good program. So right now there's, if I remember correctly, it's right around 1,100 Goodman Fellows over the last 30 years that this program's been in existence. So that's,
Good luck with that.
I'm
How
excited.
long is the program?
6 months. 6
Is it
months.
like once a week, once a month?
They meet,
Once a-
they meet, in person once a month, or a little bit more with the coaching. It's a minimum of once a month, but depending on the individual, it may be more, because I'm also doing a third person, which is it is through Leadership Triangle, but it's a different coaching program, which is a 6-month engagement. And that program, they have 3 different versions. One is like an hour and a half single coach. There's one that's a 3-month engagement, one that's a 6-month engagement. So they usually will call me for the 6 month engagement. They have also this a CEO group, leadership group for new CEOs coming into their region. It's an amazing, set of programs and organization. So when I went through, Colonel Joe LaBeouf was our primary leader. He designed and delivered the leadership program at West Point and was leadership as part of Duke's master program. So that was what we were getting when I went through. It's really, really good stuff.
Great, good luck with that. Thank you. Okay, if there's no more business for the board, we will entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Thank you, Kathleen. Thank you, Evelyn. All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Thank you. Have a good night.